sure it's here, right here. Date, February 6, 2019. This is the second in four in one thread. There was an earlier one before this that was sent. It had a unique PIN number. Then when I tried to log back on, it said that I didn't remember the password, which is not true. Somebody changed the password because they took it because of the topic it related to. And they created something with it, a product, I believe. And the thing is this particular company's ethics line, if you forget the password, you lose all access to whatever you did before. Committee on, this is a quote from me. I cut and paste something. Committee on Finance, committee ordered favorably reported the following business items. An original resolution, S. Res. 40, authorizing expenditures by the committee for the 116th Congress, and the nominations of Michael Falkender of Maryland to be an assistant secretary and Michael J. Desmond of California to be chief counsel for the Internal Revenue Service and an assistant general counsel, both of the Department of Treasury. Jeffrey Kessler of Virginia to be an assistant secretary of commerce, and Elizabeth Darling of Texas to be commissioner on children, youth, and families, Department of Health and Human Services. From today's Congressional Register, this is from me. How is it that I've opened reports with the Texas Department of Health and Human Services, to which I was referred by the Texas Veterans Commission when I contacted them about human test subject experimentation regarding women and children for, among other things, a weapons company? And while I have received no assistance, follow-up, or response, I am again proxied for someone's attempt to confirm a congressional appointment. There are numerous women in Congress and who have had to undergo congressional confirmations for which I have been used real time as a proxy. This is unacceptable. I said the Committee on Finance. Understand that by the time that Miss Darling was being requested for confirmation, there had already been reports that 3 hospitals in Texas that had mental health facilities for children had to be closed down because of sexual abuse of children on site. See, what happens is Texas runs, not just Texas, by the way, that's happened the entire time I've been back from Honduras that I've been able to see. They run these digital commerce accounts. They have different fintech for different banks. If you are not intentionally sabotaged, you can see it. At least some people can. I can. I think it was supposed to be something that could have helped in prevention or security. But when I refused to deal drugs, they tried to do something to prevent that. And they have so much streaming child porn going. They had so much streaming child porn going last autumn that I was violently angry most of the time. They have streaming child porn, sexualized scenarios that are depicting some form of commerce. Different fintech companies working for different banking establishments have slightly different resonances associated with them. So if you're a precocious young child, including one that might be spiritually gifted, or maybe is indigenous and has a specific kind of sensitivity, you can see it. And what are you going to do if you're a little kid with another little kid who looks like the little kids in this fintech display? They have streaming child pornography almost constantly when they are laundering money through people. You're a child. They've got constant streaming pornography. You're even sending them to a mental health facility. They have so much fucking child pornography being laundered through those kids in the mental health facility, especially, that they end up engaging in some sort of behavior that acts on what is constantly streaming through their unconscious. What do? What does the staff do? No, that was the big controversy. What did the staff do? Well, there were all these things the staff could have done or should have done, and they didn't do, and then one of the staff members, they acted like it was no big deal. Yeah, I was infuriated. This article that I read, one of the two articles I read, I still have a copy of one of them, at the end had some community organization saying that it was a sad situation because now that these hospitals have been shut down, there were fewer facilities to take children that had a mental health problem. Nobody fucking said anything about what was really going on. They had a judicial commission in Texas at the beginning of 2018 that I understand was corralling people who may have had some sort of concern or may have had a problem with the mental health treatment that they had received. They were giving them some sort of kickback, bribe. Up until that time, there had been, as far as I understand, 0 reports of getting a mental health diagnosis retracted in the state of Illinois. That was according to numbers provided by, information provided by the Texas Bar Association publication as of, I believe, 2015. Not one mental health diagnosis had ever been rescinded or retracted. Is that because they literally kidnap you and lock you inside for the day you're supposed to go to court to protest it? They will kidnap you, and then even if they go through some sham process where they provide you with paperwork saying that you can contest it before a court of law, they won't let you out to go to court. That's literally what happened. Meanwhile, what did they do? What did they do when they gave me that second round after they kidnapped me? That has me real time on currents for all these other women that are supposed to be highly qualified at what they do to go before some sort of peer review. Now, I sent this to the ethics line of a weapons company because the concurrences in my life with that weapons company were so distinct. And when I was admitted into the psychiatric emergency services in San Francisco, and I told them that I was experiencing vibrational technologies, vibrational messaging that was telling me I had committed crime and trying to get me to agree that I had committed the crime and that I would agree to commit crime in the future, and that there were these intense visuals and I was having these experiences of things happening concurrently in my life, that the visualizations I would have that would then come up on the news. I was told it was a hallucination. It was a symptom of being mentally ill. And then they tried this facade of discussion concerning the fact that I had a history of mental illness in my family. So I was more genetically predisposed to this particular kind of mental illness. I said, what am I to do? I mean, they don't believe me. I'm in excruciating physical pain. It's debilitating. The lines, the words on the line were not linear. Something had happened to my optic nerve. It had unraveled it. The words would not stay on the page. They floated around. I couldn't remember the end of the sentence after I started reading. They told me it was a mental illness. I needed to get on medication. I had a chemical imbalance. What they said, I had a chemical imbalance in my brain. And the medication would correct it. And then they would send me through programming that would help me stabilize. This is what they said in 2010. What about 2017? What about March 24th of 2017? M. Gorsuch to be Associate Justice of the Supreme Court. Questions for the record submitted March 24, 2017. Questions from Senator Feinstein. Senator Feinstein's on the Senate Intelligence Committee. You know, when I read through this, I didn't realize the date. When I was reading through the questions that Feinstein, oh, it actually I reviewed, I was watching, and then Justice Gorsuch did this thing where he would stop the question and refer to another question. They were numbered. And he would say the answer to that is in another number. And I was thinking, I could almost see it. It's like this legal filing that the Republican Party submitted to the Texas Supreme Court against members of the Libertarian Party. 43. There are 43 names of libertarians that they allege violated the appropriate process for attempting to get on the ballot. And they blacked out their addresses. See, in Texas, you black out the address if it's a criminal charge. How is going through a different process that involves nomination by convention as opposed to individual nomination a criminal charge? That's what they did. And the Supreme Court of Texas entertained it for a particular period of time, and they wrote an opinion on it. They didn't dismiss it. And meanwhile, there were certain numbers of candidates that submitted a response, probably because they were served. And they submitted not all of them because it got ruled on before the time limit. It's exactly the kind of process that occurs, right? They take your legal filing and they'll black out certain areas, names, maybe dates, kind of select details, and they'll put in a little option for you to run different options to appear. It's like Mad Libs. They'll black it out and then they'll put something else in there as a template. They can cut and paste certain of the statement of facts. Maybe they can take parts of your argument, keep it there. They can create programs. And if you're listing in your statement of facts events that were actually crimes, they can program them. And I contend that part of what they've done with me is they've created a program where I'm supposed to go back and be a good girl and not bitch and not challenge their authority to put me through the program, just like they've done with the pension system here in Texas, where you go to a public building or you go someplace to get something, and it's not about you getting what you need. It's about them already putting you through a pre-programmed process where you're supposed to help them get the bid they got going in that scenario that they've sent you there to run for somebody else. And when you've got healthcare where venture capitalists get profiles on candidates that they can use as remote assets for an indeterminate amount of time, well, how do you even know what you're bidding on unless you track it yourself? So when they start changing the laws around public information and stuff that used to be, I don't know, public information is now rendered confidential, especially if it involves anybody successfully mounting a case concerning public corruption, because information concerning case proceedings against political subdivisions is now considered confidential in Texas. How are you even going to track who's trafficking you? Or, I'm sorry, I did it wrong again, I did it wrong. How are you going to be able to confirm for your VC that you made their deal for them? Neil, did I make your deal for you? I thought you'd be happy with the housing. Didn't you like that last year? when they set that up and I found the case right on time? Did you have to keep going? Neil, once Amy gets to the bench, are you going to go to her directly or are you going to expect me to still be around for you to black ops? Neil, did you work with Neil in order to get illicit priority in your confirmation proceeding with an understanding that once you hooked it up, you would get the other Neil a kickback in the form of a girls' school in Florida? Just so you know, I would never accept a school where troubled assets were allowed to be farmed out, even if the guy who did it was on the Supreme Court.